Hello, students. Kuratan mo, guys. Anyway, hello. So, I'm so happy nga nagkita-kita ta karon sa tuang first day of class for this first semester, school year 2020-2021. Before I proceed, I would just like to hope that kung unsa ta kadaghan karon sa tuang first meeting. Ingon ana po dun takadaghan pagkahuman sa semester, no? So let's make it a goal that you will pass together this subject, and not only pass but kanang mupasar nga dagko og grade dili lang 75. Okay? So muna siya to ang goal for this semester. But don't worry, if you will just cooperate with this subject, I don't think it's a big issue. Okay? Now, you might be wondering why I'm here today doing this video session. Now, class, I do believe that as adult learners, it's not really necessary for you to just keep on listening to your teacher in front of you because that's kind of boring. I believe that sa inyong stage karon as second year students, I believe that it is very important for us teachers to also measure your listening skills and most especially your analytical skills. Now, why is that? Now, this video session, the good thing about this is that you can actually review our lesson anytime you want kung naala kay access sa internet compared sa kanang mag-istorya lang personally nga dali ra kay nato malimtan, no? So it is also a hint that as we go along with our discussion, I will be doing this so that before the exam, you can also have some sort of review sa tuang lesson. Okay? So expect gikan karon up to the last day of the semester, from time to time, I'll be giving you video sessions on our discussion. Okay? So this day, since this is our first day of the class, we will just discuss the introduction of Andragogy. Actually, ang atong i-discuss, katulang na apod sa inyong module, but then I'm so sure that there are some topics or some specific parts of the module which you did not really get, especially kung wala na ito gibasa. Although gibasa pero wala nasabtan. I've been to that stage nga kanang magbasa ta, but then there are really things that really hard for us to understand. So that's the main reason why I'm doing this. So I just want to remind you also that at the end of this video session, we'll be having some sort of activity, and that's the main reason why that I really want you to listen, and not only listen but be sure to understand, because it could be that ikaw akong mapilian na mag-represent sa inyong group. And take note, this is a group dynamics. So ang grading system na to is by group, and if you cannot answer the question, then what will happen to your group? Okay? So just sit back, relax, listen, but be sure to understand. Alright, so we will start our discussion today about the history of Andragogy. So this is Module 1, Lesson 1, Teaching the Adult Man the History of Andragogy. Now, before I will proceed, let me ask you this question. Is this your first time hearing the word Andragogy? If this is your first time, kindly raise your right hand, please. Some students are not raising their hand. Okay. So I can see that some of you were able to hear these were before, but the majority did not. Well, it's not really a problem because that's the main reason why that we're having this video discussion. Okay, let's proceed. Now, before going further, let me remind you also about the specific learning outcomes of this lesson. So we only have two, and as you can see, the first two learning outcomes were highlighted, nakabold siya because muna to ang gusto ma-achieve this day, no? So number one, you students are expected to define andragogy, of course. And number two, it is expected that after this video session, you'll be able to discuss the history or the origin of andragogy. Now let's proceed to the rationale or the rationale of this topic. I'm gonna make it full screen so that you can clearly see the rationale, you know. So, in the first bullet, it is stated that the methodologies in teaching children, or the so-called pedagogy, are often not the most effective means of teaching adults. Now, I guess you would all agree that teaching children or the way teachers teaches children is very much different from the way we teach you as an adult, right? And I don't think that you would agree that you would learn best if gamitan na to binata nga pagtudlo. Now take note, we're already adults. And there are things that are just intended for children but not for adults like you or like us. In the second bullet, adults or those individuals over 21 years old are the fastest growing group of people in higher education institutions. Now, perhaps you're just 20 years old, but you know for yourself that you're already adults. And as stated here, kamo nga group of people are the fastest growing group of people in higher educational institutions, like us here in GIT. Now, next, this term andragogy is anchored upon the notion that this is a model of assumption, which is important in understanding the characteristics of adult learners. Now, take note, guys, as adults, as we grow old, as we grow older, our characteristics keeps on changing as well. And take note, if we think that children are complicated beings, take note, the reality is we as adults, we are actually more complicated. And for us to better understand our own characteristics, this subject is the right subject for us to identify them. And then on the fourth bullet, it is stated that Malcolm Knowles, the one who started this term andragogy, he presented the individual learner as the one who is autonomous, free, and growth oriented. Now, unsay meaning anang autonomous? Unsay meaning anang free? And unsay meaning anang growth oriented? So later we will discuss the three of them, and with your understanding also, perhaps we could have some sort of exchanges of ideas later on. Okay, so that's it. Let us proceed. So at this point, let us define andragogy. So perhaps this is one of the most important aspect that you really need to understand, especially to those people who are just new to this term. So accordingly, the word andragogy has so many definitions. No? Daghan siya og meaning. But in order for us nga dili ta malibog, andragogy is commonly known as the scholarly approach to the learning of adults. So once you see andragogy, it means adult learning. or the learning of adults. And since Andragogy naaman ni siya yung mga corresponding nga theory, it is also important for you guys to understand unsay but pasabot gid aning theory, di ba? Sometimes your teachers would ask you, what is a theory, or what is the theory behind this specific body of knowledge? So once you say theory, it is an attempt to develop a set of learning strategies specifically for adults. So there is the theory of andragogy. Na siya tuyo, no? Ang iyang tuyo is what? Develop a set of learning strategies specifically for adults. Now, unsa man ning set of learning strategies for adults? Now, take note, class, kamo as adults, you know it for yourself nga naay mga pamaagi sa pagtudlo sa maestro or maestra nga mas maka-learn mo, di ba? And naapoy mga the way magtudlo ang mga teachers nato nga medyo ma-bored ta. And in order to avoid getting bored, no, of such teaching strategies, we need to understand also kung unsay dapat nato buhaton or i-apply nga strategy in teaching adults. All right, now andragogy actually came from a Greek word, no? And it is subdivided into two. So the term under, or from the term andragogy, it means man, of course, women, or the man in general. And the other term is agogos, meaning leading. So, to make it one word, andragogy, ang meaning ana is man leading. It's not child leading, no? Take note of the difference. So, in short, pag may andragogy, it really talks about adult because it says here man. Okay? And to make it more understandable, gi shortcut na siya diri, no, or mas gi pasabot pa siya diri. Kung mingon ganito og andragogy class, it is the method and practice of teaching adult learners. Okay, usbon na ko ha. Andragogy, it is the method and practice of teaching adult learners. So like what I am doing to you now. Okay, take note, second year college na mo. You're no longer children. And this approach, di ba, aware ta karon nga time, especially sa DepEd, because of the pandemic, ingon sila modular approach, like Q, na po daw online. But take note, what we are doing now, if i-apply ni mo na siya sa mga grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, for sure maglisod ang mga estudyante og sabot. But compared to you, adults, this kind of video session is for sure, though dili 100% ang atong understanding, but majority of you would really be able to understand. Okay? So that is the definition of andragogy, the method and practice of teaching adult learners. Okay? If you have time, you can actually search the internet for this one, and makita niyo dito nga there are so many definition of andragogy, but it would sum up into this thing, adult learning. Okay? So I hope it is clear now. Let us proceed. Let's go to the history of andragogy. So accordingly, as I mentioned earlier, andragogy came from the Greek word man leading, no? And it is actually being contrasted to pedagogy, which means child leading. It's not living, but leading, no? Now later, we will understand also what's the difference between andragogy and pedagogy, because we cannot simply explain andragogy, without understanding as well what is pedagogy. Okay? Now, in relation to andragogy, there is one prominent person nga automatic ato siyang cite in relation to andragogy. And it is in the person of Malcolm Shepard Knowles. So 1930, 1997, so namatay ni siya 1997. So kinsa man ni si Malcolm Shepard Knowles? So he was an American educator known for the use of the term andragogy as synonymous to adult education. So sabi na to ha, si Malcolm Knowles, gigamit niya ang term andragogy in synonym or synonymous to adult education. Ano sa inang synonymous gani? Synonymous meaning to say they're almost the same or they're the same. And aside from that, si Malcolm Knowles he popularized the concept of andragogy in his book, The Modern Practice of Adult Education. So kani si Malcolm Shepard Knowles, he is an educator. He wrote books specifically for adult learning. So that's why pag mingon tag adult learning as mentioned sa definition ganina, it would lead us to andragogy. So just in case wala mo nakakita sa hitsura ni Malcolm Knowles, let me show him to you. So this is him. This is Sir Malcolm Knowles. In fact, there is some additional information about him. Let me read it for you. Accordingly, the term andragogy was first coined meaning to say gigamit primero ni Alexander Kapp in 1833. So 1833 pa din ni ang word ng andragogy. But even if Alexander Kapp used the first or coined the term andragogy for the first time, but it was developed into a theory of adult education by Malcolm Knowles in 1960s. So si Alexander Kapp, siya lang ang first nga nagamit ang nga term. But iya lang gigamit ang term for some reason. But ang nag-develop nga term into a what do you call that one, into a theory to adult education is si Malcolm Knowles. So that's why the credit actually goes to Malcolm Knowles, not to Alexander Kapp, because it is really Malcolm Knowles who made in-depth study about adult education. So aside from that, he also collected ideas about adult education until introduced it to the term andragogy. So since adult education, niabot ang point nga murag nagtagbo sila sa tunga sa term nga gigamit ni Alexander Kapp o sa theory nga iyang gibuhat. So iyang gi-adapt ang term, so that's why nahimo siya andragogy, no? So Knowles known as the principal expert on andragogy. So he is an expert. Dili lang ni siya kaning basta-basta lang nga naghimo ana nga mga books, but he is an expert. But then, of course, wala may gitawag na to og monopoly of knowledge. There are also some people who also wrote about andragogy, and they are as follows. Si Brookfield in 1986, si Mizero in 1991, Lawler also in 1991, and Miriam in 1999. But then again, the most prominent personality in terms of andragogy is no other than Malcolm Knowles. So if ever during the exam, I'll be asking you if who is the most prominent personality who coined or who theorized andragogy, so your answer should be Malcolm Knowles. All right? So much for that. Let us proceed to the next. So this is in connection also, no? So Knowles' a theory of andragogy was an attempt to create a theory to differentiate learning in childhood from learning in adulthood. So as I have mentioned earlier, later as we go along with our discussion, we will be discussing the difference between andragogy and pedagogy. Because again, it would be very difficult for us to understand andragogy if dili nato balikan ng andragogy. And that is exactly the purpose of Malcolm Knowles, no? He tried to differentiate learning in childhood from learning in adulthood. Now, let's pause for a moment. Do you think, class, there is a difference between the learning of children compared to the learning of adults like you? Hmm? Do you think so? Okay. The answer for that one is basically naagi difference. Because kabalo ta nga, as we grow older, mas nagkadako atong horizon, mas nagkalapad ang atong understanding sa life, no? Compared sa bata nga, kasagaran ang bata, makakaon lang, makadula, maka-learn og ABC or what, okay na na sa ilaha. But for us adults, it is more than that, no? So, Malcolm Knowles, in his book, The Modern Practice of Adult Education, From Pedagogy to Andragogy, iyang gi-contrast, meaning iyang gi-pakita ang kalahian sa Andragogy. And he stated that Andragogy is the art and science of helping adults learn. Okay? So, ang Andragogy day class, dili lang siya theory simply about the learning of adults, but it is an art and science of helping adults learn. So pag may kag science and art, meaning to say, it involves some sort of rational decisions, scientific methodologies about the learning of adults. Now, take note, we adults, we do not simply say yes to everything that we heard or everything that we've learned. Our isa ka major na to nga characteristic is we tend to ask everything that we do not know. Di ba? We're not like children nga paignan naman children nga children, mao ni siya, mao ni siya. And then children will just say yes. Nya pag abot sa balay, ila pag isulti silang parents bisan tuod og dili gid accurate ang information. And that is the beauty of being an adult, no? That is the beauty of being an adult because we are very much, curious about anything, and we tend to ask question for us to really understand what is going on around us. Okay? So, muna siya ang nakanindot sa gibuhat ni Malcolm Knowles. Mas na-specify diri karon kung unsay kalahian sa learning sa adults o sa learning sa mga bata. Okay? Moving on. There is a second bullet. Knowles further defined Andragogy as an emerging technology for adult learning. Kasi may pasabot anang class, emerging technology. So emerging meaning to say, nakaingon siya emerging because gisulat ni niya nga libro is way back 1970s. But nowadays, we all know that adult learning is already a thing. It is already a common understanding for us that indeed learning of adults or adult learning is mas advantageous siya compared sa learning sa mga bata, no? So wala mo nag-wonder why is it nga karon sa inyong stage daghan na mog mga na-learn nga butang compared ato mga bata pa mo? So that is a major example, no? And sa last bullet, he stated that andragogy has come to be understood as an alternative to pedagogy. Unsa man ang alternative? So, may alternative is mura siya og kanang puli. 'Di ba sa mga bata pa ta, kinder pa ta, tudloan ta og mga sounds. Tudloan ta og ABC, alphabet, tudloan ta og identify sa mga animals. But karon nga naa na ta karon sa stage nga adult na ta, are we still doing those stuff? Ingon pa ba ta sa ato ang ignon pa ba ta sa atong mama nga, "Nak, unsa na nga animal? Unsay sound sa cow?" Mo na ba to ang parents? And then mutubag ba ta og unsay sound sa cat? Meow. Gingon ana pa ba ta, di ba dili na? Simply because we are already adults. Ang ato ang learning karon is dili na pareha sa mga bata. Okay? So unta wala na stick pa sila ang learning sa mga bata pa sila ha. Let us move forward because we are already adults. Do you have any question? Later na mo pag-ask because even if you have questions, I cannot answer you kay naka-record na ni, di ba? Okay, let's proceed. So, diri na ta. Magpadapin sa kadiyot klasa kay dili nato mabasa ang definition sa andragogy. Magpadapin sa ko. Perfect. Okay. So pedagogy versus andragogy. So it is very clear ang ilang kalainan. So magsugod ra sa andragogy. Unsa man ang andragogy? Meaning, ang learning ani class is it moves towards independence, self-direction, and teacher encourages and nurture learning. So kaning andragogy class dire mo, no? Ang ato ang main point aning topic is independence. And by the way, speaking of independence, please expect that from time to time I'll be giving you some outdoor activities, independent outdoor activities, independent researches, because I really wanted to find out kung effective ba ang andragogy sa inyo ha. Because it is expected nga since adult na mo, you will be doing the learning on your own. Kami ng mga teachers, of course, we will teach, but in your case, we will just facilitate learning. If you wanted to learn, dapat maningkamot ka sa imuhang kaugalingon. You may ask question but do not expect that everything will be spoon-fed to you. So muna siya ano pod, dili man disadvantage pero muna siya consequence of being an adult. Dili ka pwede magsigilag pangutana pareha sa bata. You need to do a lot of things on your own. Aron ka maka-learn. Muna ginatawag class of learning by doing. But it's good, no? It is good. Kay pag independent ka, no one can stop you from learning. Compared anang dependent kay kasi mong classmate, nga ultimo gamay lang nga question, mangutana pa kasi mong classmate. So makita nato nga ang imong mindset wala pa ni tubo if that is the case, no? So being independent is good. Being self-directed is good, no? It would lead you to a successful path later on. So mo nang andragogy. So unsa man puning pedagogy? Ang learning sa pedagogy is intended for children. And take note, children, ang aim diha is, or expectation is, ang children are still dependent. And teacher directs what, when, and how a subject is learned and tests that it has been learned. So, although niagi man ta pagkabata tanan class, but then again, sa una, sa bata pa ta, muratag robot. Pag maingon si ma'am nga, tindog, tindog po ka, lingkod po ka, do this, do that, murag robot. And students cannot proceed sa ilang studies without the guidance of their teacher. So, that's the difference, no? Pedagogy, learning sa mga bata, andragogy, learning sa mga adults. Though we appreciate our learning here, kiniagi matatanan dire, but in real life, we need andragogy so much because we are now actually living in a real world, no? Isa mga bata pamanggod ta sa pedagogy, it is more on playing. Though we are learning, but actually we are just playing. So, that's their difference. So, I hope nakuha na to, no? Ang difference sa pedagogy and andragogy. Now, naay assumptions or naay assertions ang andragogy. So, it is stated here that andragogy asserts that adults learn best when. Okay. So, usibot pasabot ani. Kita dong adults, mas maka-learn pa ta og maayo kung so unsang man nga mga situations or scenarios nga kita mga adults mas maka-learn pa og maayo. Okay, number 1. Adults learn best when they feel the need to learn. Now, unsay example ani? When they feel the need to learn. Now, sometimes class in our life, natay mga gusto buhaton nga di ta kabaloon sa ano buhat. Now, sa ato ang time karon, thankfully, halos tanang butang mahibal-an na nimo og buhat because nanay mga tutorial sa YouTube. no? And take note, ang creation sa YouTube is actually a product of Andragogy. Now, ngano nasulti na ako na siya? Now, as time goes by, kita nga mga dagko na there's a need for us to learn to do something. Like for example, you need to do some arts and crafts. You need to you need to learn how to cook some recipe. Di ba? Nya kita mga adult, when we are curious about doing something, mas naging effective ta sa atong kinabuhi because we really give our best in order to learn those things. And as what we all know, if gusto kita maka-learn, atong ginahatag ato ang 101% nga attention, ang ato ang eagerness to learn, so on and so forth. So pag naa gani need to learn, mas maka-learn ta nga mga adults. So for example, hapit natong exam. Kanya ibutang nato og wala pa tay module kay nahutdan og mga ink or papel. And then moingon ko sa inyo nga, okay class, ako nang gi-post sa YouTube ang atong series of video sessions. And if ever gusto mo maka-perfect sa exam, all you need to do is visit the internet, open YouTube, and follow the link. So ikaw nga adult nga gusto ka ma-perfect, so and you feel that there is a need for you to go to the internet, then of course, you'll give your best shot. So muna siya ang isa ka basic example. The feel or when adults feel the need to learn. There are so many things under this situation and we cannot discuss all of them. But at least natay clear nga understanding about this. Number 2, adults learn best when they have some input into what, why, and how they learn. Ano sa maning input into what, why, and how they learn? So, sa mga bata pa ta, natay mga activities nga ginahatag ang maestro o maestra. But most of the time, example lang ha, moana si ma'am, mga grade 1 pa ta or grade 2. Okay, children, may assignment ha, gunting mo aning mga newspapers and then maghimo mo og drawing and everything. Ang mga bata mo follow instruction, but then in reality, pag abot sa balay, it's not the children who are actually doing the assignment, but their parents or their brothers and sisters. And kids do not really care about it. Ang ilaha lang, pag mahuman og himo silahang parents or brothers and sisters, then they will submit. But kita nga mga adults, we're not like that. If we are given instruction on what to do, especially if natay step-by-step nga procedure, there's a tendency that we will get mad if some other people will do the work for us. Ang atong ginabuhat is, we are so much eager to do the task as long as there is an instruction. Og samot pag yun, kung naay rason nganong imo na siyang gibuhat. Now, some other people, ginasugo sila silang parents or ginasugo sa isa ka personality to do things. And then, dili man ta mga bata, we then ask, what's the reason for this? Diba? Now, if makabalo taon sa reason, especially if maayo ang tumong, we are eager to do the task and we are eager to learn about it. So, muna siya ang isa ka reason nga maka-learn ta og best. Kanang naay rason og nganong himuon natong usa ka butang. No, we are so eager to learn about it. Third one is adults learn best when the learning's content, ang sulod sa learning, and processes have a meaningful relationship to the learner's past experience. Unsa maning meaningful relationship to the learner's past experience. Now, for example, I know some of you here niagi mo og kalisod, especially siguro karon naglisod pagyapon ang uban sa inyo ha. And niabot ang point nga naay mga gathering and then some of you were asked to give his or her like background sa iyang life or testimony, and especially if naapod kay mga audience nga naglisod, kamo nga naka-experience na ng mga butanga, makahatag mo og concrete nga input or helpful nga mga insights about those people nga nakaagi pud sa imong kalisod. Now, like for me, for example, no, before I graduated college, I serve as, nagtrabaho ko og Jollibee. I am supporting myself. And aside from working at Jollibee, during Saturdays, nag-aadto ko mga balay-balay just to mangutana kinsay magpalimpyo, magpahagbas, magpalimpyo sa kanal just to earn money. So there was a time that we had a gathering sa amuang workstation, and then our boss asked about our experiences in life. So I was able to share to them my experience, and as a result, some of the listeners were able to get some encouragement sa ako ang naagian, no? And because of those experiences, it made me a better person pag-abot karon, no? It really helped me a lot. Now siguro kung bata pa ta ato nagkalisod ta ato siguro buhaton mutyabaw lang ta mo yaka sa yuta because we do not know what to do. But since being an adult, we've learned best, especially kung na mga experiences ato ang life. And most of the time, kato mga na-experience atong nga kalisod, we will do our very best nga dili na nato na siya maagian og usab, and possibly dili pod maagian sa ato ang mga, friends or sa ato ang mga parente because we know exactly how it feels. Right? So for example, last sem nabagsak ka or gibagsak ka sa imong maestra or na-drop ka because nagbinuang ka, wala ka nagtarog sulod. So do you think this semester imo pa na siyang usbon? Dili na pud siguro, no, because you know exactly what will happen to you if you will do the same thing. Malangan ka sa imong pag-eskwela. So mo na siya meaning ana nga part. Next, adults learn best when their experience is used as a learning resource. So what do you mean by their experience being used as a learning resource? So pare-pareha ni siya sa ako ang gi-mention ganina. If you were able to experience something bad before, and then somebody asks for like advice on what to do regarding that experience, so mas maka-learn ang adult by simply listening to the experience of his or her friend nga dili na po na niya usbon because he or she knows what happened to that friend of him or her about anang situation. And as I mentioned kanina, excuse me, example, gigamit ka nga example sa imuhang friend nga ningon siya, dili ko musundog kang so and so nga na wala nagtarong og eskwela because kabalo ko nga mabagsak ko or i-drop ko sa ko ang teacher. So though gigamit kaniya nga example, but he actually used such experience as a learning resource. No? And by that, familiar man siguro ta sa statement class nga experience is the best teacher. Tama? So sabi ko pasabot ana. Whatever you experience in life, may it be good or bad, kabalot ta nga ato gina siyang dumduman pirmi, no? Kay kung nagkamali ka kaisa, okay lang. Pag makamali ka ikaduha, well, there's something wrong with you na. Pero pag nagkamali gyapon ka ikatulo, you need to question yourself kung okay pa ba ka, no? But kasagaran ang ginabuhat, muna giingon sa Bisaya nga di nagyud ko mo usab, kausa na lang. Okay, so I hope di na siya mahitabo. Dapat kaisa lang. If it's bad, then 1 is too much. All right? And then another thing is learners or adults learn best when what is to be learned relates to the individual current life situation and task. Okay, klaro kayo, no? Mas maka-learn ta kung ang gusto nato ma-learn is related siya sa ato ang present nga situation or mga ginabuhat sa ato ang life. So sa may example ani, sa may example aning individuals current life situation. Na for example, balik ta, naglisod ka sa imong pag-eskwela. Kay imong mamag papa walay ikagasto or if not, wala na kay mama or wala na kay papa. But then you really wanted to pursue your studies. You really wanted to achieve your dreams in life. Nga bisan pa og naglisod ka, you really wanted to finish college. So what do you think sa imo as an individual ang imong buhaton? Do you think magpadayon ka or maghimo kag mga butang makapahunong sa imong eskwela? Di ba dili? Instead, you will pursue, you will do everything as long as legal aron masuportaan karon ang imuhang current nga sitwasyon. And take note class, kanang mag-atubang tagkalisod, it is one of the most important parts ato ang life because diha mag-build ato ang character, no? The more ka maglisod, the more ka maningkamot nga mahawas ka sa kalisod. So that's why you will do everything in your capacity to elevate your life. Elevate meaning imong mapasaka ang imong naglisod nga kahimtang karon. And like what I've shared kanina, way back in college, wala na ko'y support from my parents because I didn't ask a support from them kay mo to'y time nga down kay among family. So ningon ko nga, sige lang ma, pa, don't worry about me. Tabangan na gihapon ko sa Ginoo. So what I did, I applied for a part-time job. I applied for being a gardener, tiglimpi og kanal. Though it is very hard, but that difficulty teaches me a lesson. And that lesson is number 1, to never give up. And number 2, to pursue my dreams. And number 3, to be a good person. Natoy times nga lami na kayo undang, lami na kayo ihimo og mga dautan nga butang, but still ang guidance sa Ginoo pero may nag-ingon nga no. Because if imo na siyang buhaton mo samot ka og kalisod. So what I did, akong giagwanta ang kalisod. Ug sa tabang sa Ginoo I was able to graduate college. And after graduation, nakasugod na og work until now. And dili man panghinambog class, but I could say that in my own, I really learned a lot of things about my situation that time. So same as you, that's the essence of that thing, no? So I hope inyohan na siya magets. Napagyud. Learners learn best when they have as much autonomy as possible. So unsay but pasabot aning autonomy? Autonomy meaning to say what do you call that one? Being autonomous, being free to do whatever they want to do. No? Unsay kalainan class sa kanang estudyante or tao nga permi lang gasalig sa mando sa isa ka tao. Like you're a robot. Like lingkod, tindog, tuwad, or whatever. Do you think maka-establish ka na og what do you call that one? Maka-establish ka na og self-confidence? Murag ikaduha lang ka na sa slave class, di ba? And for sure, naka-try na ta before, way back sa atong elementary years, nga ato ang mga teachers, very, mga stricta pa kayo. Common pa kayo nga time nga, kusion ka, bunalan ka, ipasit on the air, Nabayon pa kag chalk ug eraser, no? So mo nang hinungdan nga kita usahay sa una, pag makita nato atong teacher, taas kay atong respect because nahadlok di ta, no? But kita nga mga adults, dili na ta ana pwede. Though I am your teacher, but I cannot just simply tell you what to do, no? You need to be autonomous. You need to have yourself decisions in life. Like for example, I cannot just tell you nga, hey, dapat o ikay absent bisag isa ha. No, I cannot do that. But I will remind you nga ang inyong absent kutob lang sa ikalima. But of course, because sa panahon karon sa pandemic, nya tungod pud sa to ang kalisod sa panahon, I cannot simply control your life, no? I cannot simply decide on your behalf. You need to be autonomous. You need to be free as much as possible. But it doesn't mean class nga free, nga wala na lang pud tay respect no sa ato ang teacher or sa school. Dapat balance. You have the freedom, but be sure to do your part on your own way. Okay? So you will learn best when you are autonomous. And that's going to be our practice for this class. I will give you autonomy, but be sure to do such thing in accordance to our rules and regulations. Aron wala tay sami or aron dili ta masangit sa kaulahian. Okay, we're almost done. Another thing is learners or adults learn best when their learning style are taken into account. Okay, dirita. We all know that in education, natay ginatawag class og different learning styles. So matag-usa nato natay own way of learning. Naay uban maka-learn through listening, through watching videos, na po iban maka-learn through reading or doing whatever they want to do. So, in our case, since adults naman mo, I will give you the autonomy to choose your own learning style. No? But of course, since as a teacher, dili man bud pasabot nga kada activity ibase nato sa inyong individual learning style, kadi ta mahuman ana. But what we are trying to emphasize here is you have the freedom to choose how you are going to learn. So in that case, dili ko manghilabot ana class ato ang klase kung unsa kada way gusto maka-learn. So I will not hinder you from doing that because our main goal here is for you to learn. Okay? So don't worry. I'm not so dili ta mag martial law diri about sa tuang learning, but be sure nga maka-learn gyud ka, no? Kay kung magbuot-buot na pud ka pero dili ka maka-learn, ma-defeat ang atoang purpose. All right? And then of course, I guess this is the last slide. Adults learn best when there is a cooperative learning climate. Okay, cooperation. Sir, common kina sa amuha, sir. Sa amuha ganing module, sir, grabe among cooperation eh. Nag-group study dito sa balay sa akong classmate. So ayaw katingala, sir, nga ang answer sa among module pare-pareha. Mo ba na itong gimin sa cooperative learning climate? Well, illegally, yes. Illegally, ha? Yes. But of course, ang gimin ani class nga kitang mga adults, mas maka-learn ta kung magtinabangay, no? So dili na to tawagog cheating ha, tinabangay. Okay? So, kabalo na ta ana. Niagi pud ta ana, no? But then mas challenging siya class nga ang learning in a cooperative learning climate, but dapat dili pud ng illegal nga pamaagi, no? Kinahanglan gyud uban mga estudyante ipaagi lang nila group study, but ang ending nagkinopyahay. Ang uban gani malimot pa, makopya pa apil ang pangalan, which is really existing, dili gina siya joke, no? So let us avoid doing that. kay dili po na siya challenging, dili pud ta motubo ana professionally. Pwede ta mangutana, but ayaw ipangutana tanan. We need to be independent. We need to be autonomous as mentioned earlier, right? So, being cooperative is good as long as gigamit siya sa sakto, but if gamito nato sa pag-cheat, then it's not. But the thing is, we learn best when there is cooperation. So I'm encouraging you guys to cooperate with each other. That's why natay mga ginatawag og group dynamics. But dili nato na siya i-apply during sa quizzes o during sa exam. Kay kung masakpan pud mo nga nag-cooperate, so basig i-cooperate pud nako inyong grade. So kay nag-cooperate man mo, so i-cooperate lang sa punta mo og bagsak ha para balik na pud mo sunod. Okay, pero I know it will not happen because you're adults, you are responsible, and you are good citizens, good students of GIT. Alright, so kana lang sa atong i-discuss for this session. Kay introduction pa man ta. So you just wait for my further instruction about our subject. And as I have said, expect that this is not the only video session nga inyohang maagian, daghan pa kay aron ma-exercise ato ang listening at the same time analytical skills. So please prepare for an activity, if not today, next meeting, and all the questions will be taken from this video. So I will just give you some instruction on where you can view this one. Kaya ako pa na siyang i-upload. I will just inform you ahead of time. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you've learned something today. And hopefully we could continue next time around. All right, thank you for listening and see you next time.